Welcome to Selling Circular, the podcast dedicated to exploring the innovative minds and business models shaping our transition to a circular economy. I'm Gar Punnett, CEO of LoopLayer.
I'm Sabira Lakhani, VP of Product at SpareTech.
Sabira, always in a new location. It's just the work style right now. You're just...
Pretty Vancouver behind me.
Pretty Vancouver behind you. Yes, we've had some great guests from Vancouver, so actually you can go check those out.
Shout out.
Amanda from Monday was a great episode talking about marketing in circular economy. But today, we're unpacking one of the most fundamental challenges of the circular economy. And actually, I guess our guest is actually coming from the Pacific Northwest on this for this solution, which we'll get to. But really, it's the question here is how do you actually get the stuff that doesn't belong in your recycling bins to the right place? So you know that these items are piling up in your kitchen, drawer, or garage. It's the plastic film, it might be the batteries, the light bulbs, the styrofoam that came with your latest online purchase, hence the unpacking of this episode. And they're technically recyclable, but maybe your curbside program won't take them, or maybe it's confusing, or maybe it's just, again, just not possible. And that's where our guest comes in.
And our guest is tackling this problem. Her name is Aliya Marder. She's a co-founder of Ridwell, which is, I think, starting to become maybe a household name.
I think so.
The West Coast for sure. And what they've been doing is building bridges between passionate recycling advocates and the complex reality of waste management systems.
Yep.
So they started a door-to-door pickup service in the Pacific Northwest and have evolved the business into something much bigger, including, and we're going to talk in depth about this, a brand new national mail-in program that's making hard-to-recycle materials accessible to anyone, anywhere that they could send it in.
Yes. And the coolest thing is on that national push, and I think we might talk about this a little bit in the episode, is Aliya has been doing a little bit of a get-to-know-you amount of sessions in different cities. And so she came through Chicago. I was able to see her, sit through the session, understand too, and meet a couple of my fellow community members who are interested in Ridwell. But what she got to show, and we don't actually get into this in the episode, which is why I want to talk about it right here, she was able to talk about a couple of the products that they're now able to make out of the materials that they're reclaiming from their members. And so what they're looking into, and this might come up in a holiday potential shopping opportunity, which is they're looking at working directly with partners who can make bags out of different recyclable materials. They can make phones or phone cases, or not make phones, that would be nuts, but make phone cases, and make eyeglass cases. And so there's really cool things that they can start doing and then selling those materials back into essentially their members. And what an amazing circular opportunity that is of some real material reuse at play there.
I'm curious, I mean, this might be going a little bit off of where we wanted to go, Gar, but TerraCycle was an early innovator in this space.
In the mail-in program space, for sure. Yeah.
In the mail-in program space. And so this to me is kind of a proof point that there's just more than enough trash and waste to go around that can be repurposed and reused or recycled into new ways. So that's a really kind of like interesting thing, but I'm curious if you have heard anything or from the event that you were on the ground with Aliya with. Is there like any chatter, competition? Like what's the market vibe if you pulled anything? I don't know.
No, I definitely hear that. I think what Ridwell is, what's so interesting about Ridwell is they are definitely coming from West Coast to East Coast. And so TerraCycle being East Coast to West Coast. And so I think there's definitely more of I've been in all of those regional bubbles of people talking about these different solutions. TerraCycle really leading the way in a lot of ways, but clearly there's a market gap where Ridwell feels like they're able to connect with more of a member constituency of a program that's kind of working on a geographic by geographic basis.
Roll out.
What I got and what I remember too of TerraCycle is the first place that you were often seeing those was actually drop-off points. It wasn't really necessarily at your doorstep. And so there's maybe innovations here too, different from region to region, but ultimately that's where these are all models that are still being explored because the economics are working enough to perform what is kind of a white glove service. And then really then there's seemingly more demand for this type of transparency, for this type of model to just solve the problem and really enter that space. I think the only other thing I would add in this is each of those then also compete with very regional solutions. So it is interesting, and we actually get into this in the episode, to really explore what it means for Ridwell when they're coming into a new geography and trying to get a sense of what that constituency needs and what the gaps of
Mhm.
services are.
Mhm.
And so really then what they're able to do and what they're able to provide is really then thread that needle between education and action. And so that then they can really start giving people an opportunity with Ridwell to say, oh, there might be something that's for you, and being the ones who can get those go-to recycling questions,
Mm.
offer those opportunities in their friend group, and become the champions of change in their region. That seems to be some sort of mark that Ridwell's really hitting.
Yeah.
And so in the episode, we actually get to dig into how that sort of circular business model can work from neighborhoods, scaling that out to a region, how that actually can
Yeah.
actually be possible.
And that's what's interesting about like kind of the problem space is that municipalities have handled waste so uniquely and it's so localized,
I mean, that's
but
a theme, right?
you need the aggregation in order for the economics to work at scale. And so just a really cool approach, cool to see multiple players. So if you're a recycling skeptic, wondering if things actually get recycled, or you're the person who is storing bubble wrap in their closet waiting for the right solution, this conversation about Ridwell is for you. Let's go.
Let's go. Without this sounding too pluggy, you are doing more of a national release. You're looking at going in more cities. I got the chance to
Yep.
experience you all coming to Chicago and asking some of our communities questions and having communities participate. This is where the question goes. I loved being in that little community session because for me, I don't get enough of being in the field with recycling participants, very enthusiastic participants. I was really interested in the demographics. I was interested in
Mm,
young and old, very passionate. That was the
mhm.
through line. How have you evolved to work within these communities and explain the nuances while also making it approachable? It's sort of an education mixed with expansion. It's really hard to do, and I thought you did a great job when I was in there sort of listening.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think first of all, it's a special person who wants to show up. I think you came to our like Friday at 1:30
Friday at
p.m.
1:30.
session
Yes.
on a teacher in service day for Chicago Public Schools. So like it's a special passionate person who wants to show up to kind of an unknown thing at
Yeah.
1:30 on a Friday. And so there are people who have done a lot of research, who have talked with a lot of people who might be the recycling person in their friend group or their family group, where
Yeah.
they're the ones who always get the questions. And so I think what brings this community together is a desire to have more knowledge and to be more aware of what the challenges are, what the opportunities are. And so those are the people we're really excited to engage with early on in this process of bringing Ridwell to more places. And so we did these events in Chicago and DC and Boston. I promise I'll get to your question in a second.
No.
And we've been like floored by the enthusiasm that is shared across all of these communities. We've been to really rural areas in Eastern Washington and Oregon and California. We've been to super dense areas because we started this as like the brainchild of this was wait, how do we solve for multifamily folks? Because our
Big.
pickup service, which is door to door, was tough to have a bin in a high rise apartment. Where do you keep it? Do you move it up and down? Is your building okay with it? All
That's a
those
big one.
questions. And so it's been really exciting to see shared passion for something in a time uh, when what brings us together is a lot harder to find often than what kind of separates us. So that's really, really fun for me. I think to your question on how have we evolved, how we talk about this, Um, it is it's something we're watching all the time, right? Because the landscape itself is shifting. Like when we first got started, and I bring this up in the presentation, it was in a moment of this new policy overseas called China Sword, which is when China stopped accepting all of our contaminated recycling. And so that was this moment of like a deep desire for more education from the populace about how recycling worked and how it didn't. It was the first time in 30 years that anyone had heard anything about recycling is broken. And now all of a sudden it's like a reframe. And I think some of what I'm trying to do in those settings where we're educating the people who care the most about it is give them the tools to champion the small things, like take those little steps, rebuild confidence in what we're all trying to do here, which is like create more solutions for wasting less, not find the perfect solution for, because I just don't think that's that plausible. It's like there's not going to be one solution here.
I loved what you said about those folks that are willing to participate in these community events that you're learning
Hmm.
from, they're learning from you. I never really thought of them as those vectors for the friend groups and the families out there that
Yeah.
turn to them for an answer, and how
Yep.
useful that is, where they get to now feel like they're a part of a solution and be like, this could be coming to our community. This is what we could do. This is,
Hmm.
and have that sort of optimism baked in for them to go and report
Yeah.
back a new thing that could be coming to their community. That was an interesting way to put
Yeah.
it. I would love to. How then have you think? What did you learn from those communities? What have you learned from these sessions yourself?
Yeah. So I've done a number of them. Chicago is where I was most recently, and I think we did 15 or 16 events over 4 days. It was really exciting. I think um, the big learning is, or the big reminder is always how passionate people are about this. And I really can't like say it enough, is like how excited about making change and finding a solution people are, and just how hungry they are. I think it's easy for large organizations or governments or stuff like that to kind of dismiss individual motivation and action and passion, and like it can actually have big results. So that's always a really fun personal reminder for me. I'm learning in the Chicago area specifically, and in other metros that we've been visiting, there's a lot of grassroots organization that's already there. There's a lot of people doing very, very cool things that I'm excited to kind of what's the word? Puzzle piece in, as like where can Ridwell fit into the existing landscape and ecosystem of both community organizations doing things, governmental organizations doing things, because again, we are not the solution, we are a solution, because the problem is just that big that it'll take like many, many, many of us to solve it. Learning really interesting things always. There's nuances of what's included and what isn't included in, you know, what's a good example? Oak Park has a styrofoam drop off. You can go take it down to Dart. You can go participate in this sustain. And so there's always this really robust network of solutions that people have found, that I love learning about. I love learning how people are solving these problems today.
Those robust solutions could include Susan, who then goes and Susan
Right.
takes it to.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I
Yeah, I
didn't
guess
know about Susan. Yes,
robust is a little bit of a there's a patchwork network of these things that people are relying on, and it's really, really community driven. It's rare that it's like, yeah, our government has set up these 10 different options with these drop off locations and these pickup services and these things that are supporting, like, it is so community oriented, which is really cool.
But your company kind of like, I like what you said, like that patchwork is that you're trying to like almost fill in the gaps and
Yeah.
provide something consistent and reliable and, something that people can count on.
Mhm.
But you started in, smaller, maybe like number of neighborhoods or even cities.
Yeah.
And now you've graduated to a mail in program. I have so many questions about this graduation, right? Like, this is like kind of a
Yeah.
big moment. And like, well, I would want to know like what made you guys think about this kind of graduation,
Hmm.
what you learned from the neighborhoods that kind of promoted this thought. But yeah,
Hmm.
and also like the challenges that you faced along the way to kind of come to this point. But
Yeah.
maybe let's just start like this moment of graduation. Like, what What was like the aha moment to say we need to go here?
Yeah, so we had been doing a city by city rollout. So we started in Seattle. It was a nights and weekends project where we did like increase our service area to different neighborhoods based on demand. So like we started in 10 zip codes in the Seattle area and then slowly added more as we could support them. We launched Portland, our second market in November of 2020, and then grew from there. The path of launching a new market has a lot of hurdles, and we're excited about tackling those. Um, but we also knew that there was no way we could cover like everywhere. We were never going to get to every single city um, in the United States. And we also knew that there were people who care about this no matter where they live, whether or not they would ever be able to realistically and viably support a pickup service in their neighborhood. And so we were looking for options. Like I said, we kind of got started on this journey trying to solve the multifamily question for us. We had also, and Gar, I apologize, you already heard the story. We had a member from Portland who was hiking the Pacific Crest Trail and wanted to do it zero waste. And so reached out to us to ask if she could send us back her plastic along the journey because she had solved everything else except for those granola bars and those chip bag wrappers. And so we said, yeah, of course. And so for, I don't know how long it took her, maybe 3 weeks or something like that, we had like a garbage pen pal and she would like send us her trash and we would make sure it got recycled. And we were thinking like, well, this is something that we could do for more people who live places that we don't have pickup service yet. And so we explored this option. We saw what else was out there. We knew that we had the warehouse network since we have warehouse locations across the nation. Most of Chicago stuff, for example, goes to Minneapolis. Most of the East Coast stuff goes to Atlanta. We have that network to shrink our impact because we're not shipping to one consolidated location from everywhere in the US. We also have the network of transparent partners that can scale with us. So we have, over the past, what is it now, 8 years, the partnerships network, I'd say, is one of our strongest assets. It's what it was early on, what was one of our biggest challenges was like once we had reached maybe 5,000 members, we were reaching kind of limitations from the local partners we were working with at the time. And so a big hurdle for us was finding these larger scale partners who could scale with us as we scaled. And so that's something that we could then offer to more people nationally. Um, and then finally, we saw the community excitement. We have people who, like on every social post we do, someone's always like, when are you coming to Sacramento? Or when are you coming to wherever, Asheville, North Carolina? And so we knew we had demand. We had people who were interested in doing doing Ridwell, and we were Ridwelling their stuff, but we couldn't serve them, and found this way, and we're really excited about it.
I want to step back and actually double click a little bit on something you just said about an evolution
Yeah.
of gaining. I don't know if it's not quite purchase power. It's not quite. It's some sort of scaled power when you start to hit a certain volume, a certain membership, a certain
Yeah.
consistency. Can you
Yeah.
unpack that a little bit for us on what that growth looks like? Because I love and wrapped up in that is certain graduation to bigger partners who can handle more
Mhm.
volume. Can you talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that growth, that evolution, and
Yeah.
how you think about that and what it takes? Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, when we were just getting started, we were able to work with a lot of the same outlets that individual residents could use if
Right.
they did like if they had time to do the research and take their
Susan.
stuff there. And so
Susan
exactly,
again. Yes.
Susan collecting everyone's styrofoam and
Right.
taking it down to wherever to Dart or whatever it is. Um and so we were using a lot of those. And we hit this kind of uncomfortable middle period where we had outgrown those drop-offs.
Mm-hmm.
They were starting to say like, "Hey, you're bringing too much stuff. Like we can't accept this." But we weren't yet at the scale where the big
Ooh,
partners were willing to talk with us.
interesting.
And so we had to do a lot of relationship building and a lot of like, hey, will this small partner, will you talk to, because we were going to the same end partner. Um, and so what we needed was a series of like references really to be like, hey, give these people a chance. Like they want to, like, we don't quite have the volume. We need you to take a little bit of a flyer, but trust us, our material's really good. And I think that was the fear, is that often post-consumer recyclable material is really low quality because it's so high contamination. Because the material is either handled via drop-off locations or other means where there's just a lot of other stuff in there. It's the same problem with curbside recycling, is it's just you get a lot of stuff and it's hard to get it back out in a financially viable way. And what we were trying to tell these partners, and we sent them, you know, test loads and pilot loads and being like, it's really good. We swear. And they came back to us and they're like, yeah, it is really good. We'll work with you even though like you're below our poundage threshold and stuff like that. And so there was a little bit of two ways I think we snuck in there. Partially it was the quality of the material we were providing, and then it was the connections and the relationships that we had built with those local partners that helped us get reference into the larger scale partners. It was definitely contentious isn't quite the right word. Stressful. It was
Yeah.
a stressful moment in our path where it was like, okay, we're outgrowing this group of people. We need to find who they're working with on the
Right.
end and get in front of them and make sure they can collect our material. But I think a lot of what has paved the way is we put our partners front and center. We tell our membership where stuff is going, and that we have these trusted relationships and that they can trust these partners we're going to. And so for our partner side, there is a visibility, transparency value that they get on the end consumer. And then because our members care, it's like kind of a virtuous cycle. Because we
Right.
say that it's good, it's high quality, this is where it's going, the people who give us their material are more likely to give us better stuff so that they're doing their right thing so it can be recycled. And so it has this, yeah, the virtuous cycle or the
I
feedback loop is strong there.
I love that. I just to double down real quick, Sabira, on what's the what's the next step? Have you all, I mean, is there a scale next where you unlock maybe new abilities, new partnerships
Yeah,
that you're sort of striving for
yeah.
now?
I think the next scale is actually investment,
Yeah.
is partnering with people, entrepreneurs who are trying to get off the ground to recycle something new that there's
Mm.
currently not a partner for, that are looking for really clean streams of material to do something novel with. And
Oh.
so we're partnering with someone on the thread cycling side who's doing like what is it called? Thread to thread, or it's taking old clothes and textiles, turning it back into threads so it can be resewn and
Excellent.
rewoven, rather than most threads are like downcycled into things that can be recycled over and over again, but it's not going to become a new t-shirt.
Like
Like once
it's
it
going
was
to
a
be a
t-shirt, it's hard to become a new t-shirt.
yeah, you're going to be
It's
a
going to
hand
be
cloth and then you're going to be a something else and yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
hand cloth, then upholstery stuffing,
Yeah, I'm
then
trying to think of other things.
insulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Down the line.
Um, down the line. And so we're doing another one that's film to film. So
Mm.
can we take our plastic film at a high enough grade and turn that back into plastic film? So I think that's where our next horizon of kind of partnership level is that uh, finding, investing or supporting those
Yes.
next level upcyclers, circularity recyclers.
Well, and that's because that's providing infrastructure to those types of solutions and entrepreneurs that
Yeah,
lack that feedstock, that there might be creativity that
exactly.
could be unlocked from having such
Yep.
a core feedstock ready to sort of innovate
Yeah,
around. Yeah, that's really
exactly.
important.
But this kind of like direction is making me curious about the economics and like the chicken and egg. Like if you're focused on materials that aren't accepted in curbside recycling, you have to almost like build the confidence that you can have the volume for an entrepreneur to be able to like
Right.
accept that stream. And so like how do
Hmm.
you kind of go about growing the portfolio of what you're accepting, and how do you support
Yeah.
the economics of the change in that portfolio?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think you're right, it is a little bit of chicken or egg, and this is a challenge that's happening even with the, like, EPA systems that are coming out where it's like, we're gonna put a bunch of money towards making sure that these materials are recycled or recollected to be reused, but then there's the infrastructure, like, they lack the infrastructure to do that recollection and recycling, and so, um, I guess all that to say is it has to be something that's taken on really deliberately, as it's like this give and take of, "Hey, we have we have this type of material. This is someone trying to get off the ground here. Can we supply them to this point in time? What kind of materials can we give them?" The question of scale is an interesting one, and we haven't hit that yet because the barriers have come more on the demand than they have on the supply. I think there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of waste out there.
Yeah.
And if we can get more people interested in buying post-consumer resin, talking specifically for plastics, but I think the higher interest we can get in post-consumer resin, either through legislation or just, you know, business demand or consumer demand. I think I said in one of those events, like, if we can get more people excited about buying things in gray plastic, we'll be in a great spot. Um, because everyone wants white plastic.
Yep.
Like everyone wants their brand color plastic. And if we can solve some of those end consumer demand things I think Ridwell also has a role to play there about promoting those brands that are doing those things, that are using post-consumer recycled materials in their packaging or in whatever goods they're making, so that we can continue this feedback loop of circularity, because that is more of a hurdle than
Yep.
feedstock material.
There's some marketing firm or some product engineering consulting firm that has dictated that consumers need to have white bottles and that
You know.
somehow and it's like only like I want to know where that data is coming from, where all of these companies aren't just going, oh, actually turns out really maybe customers don't actually care that much, and maybe we can
Yeah,
market the
maybe they
fact
just
that
don't care.
right, exactly. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna do some
Yeah, I think
googling on that. Yeah.
there's an article that's, like, reminding me of where someone did, like, they tried to sell Tide like, a beige or gray bottle, and it was like, "Oh, sales weren't as good. It was just we're discontinuing it." It probably wasn't Tide.
Yeah.
Don't throw Tide under the
Yeah,
bus.
exactly.
It
No,
might have been
don't.
someone else,
But to
yeah,
your point, it's like, oh, somehow this happened in one test market, and somehow it didn't perform to a certain expectation threshold, and it's like, oh, this
exactly.
must be doomed forever. It's like, oh, okay, well,
Right.
maybe that happened in the 2000s. What if it happened now?
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
exactly.
maybe we could
Yeah,
try something else. Yeah,
yeah, very
that's
true.
yeah, I love that concept, and I love what you said too about how getting back to almost the portfolio solutions, because this gets to the heart of your business model, where you are charging a subscription to provide a service to a passionate consumer who's saying,
Mhm,
I need this to be taken care of, please help me in finding
mhm,
the proper channel for these materials. You all take these materials and you're currently, and this is where maybe you can correct me, but you're currently not selling them to these downstream partners because there's no value necessarily in all
right,
of the right. And so what I love, and I think maybe what you could talk about too, is to help the audience better understand that part of you developing maybe a portfolio of solutions of products that might actually
mhm,
use this post-consumer plastic is about finding more commoditized values for these materials that can
definitely.
maybe raise that floor.
Yeah, definitely. I think, so our partnership model is mixed. So some of the
Great.
material we pay to get recycled, some of the material we are paid a very small amount per pound.
Right.
It ends up netting out to about $0, like
Yep.
when you look at all of it combined. And some of that is about the commodity price. And I think a few things can happen if demand is increased on a post-consumer resin side. I think it can both create more incentives for curbside hauling programs to start including them in their service, which would be interesting because then it would be more accessible to more and more people. There are, of course, major challenges there with how single stream works generally when it comes to the contamination question. And so those would be hurdles to overcome. And then the other side is if there is more demand of the post-consumer resin materials, then there can be more revenue there on the Ridwell side, and then we could ostensibly lower our prices and to make it more accessible again. So I think there's a few different directions there if we can help either educate around increasing that demand or just help brands think through that challenge for sure.
I'm curious also, like in this journey to graduation, like there's the portfolio of materials, but now also the portfolio of offerings. And I'm curious if you
Hmm.
can talk about the journey of starting at that like multi-family unit and saying like that's the right place to start. But can you talk a little bit about like, did you expand that model over time, who you collected from? And now like the mail-in program, right? It's like the exact is or in the inverse, right? Now you're accessible to everybody, but just some of
Yeah.
the steps along the way and the challenges with the having that portfolio, the collection methodology portfolio as well.
Do you mean like the horizontal nature of our collection materials where like we collect many different types of stuff rather than just focusing on a specific one?
I mean, from different types of locations. So, like, maybe you're at
Oh, oh,
multifamily,
oh.
oh, and, like, and sometimes, like, high
Yeah.
rises might not work, or if you're in high
Yeah.
rises now, like, how did you graduate, to
Um,
different self collection?
yeah. We started as primarily a service that was more targeted towards single family homes. So people with standalone homes who were dealing with the type of stuff, you order online, you get stuff in the mail, and you're figuring out how to handle it all. And then you have the space for something like a bin that you can have you put stuff in every 2 weeks and get it picked up. And so the service was not like fully designed to handle different types of living conditions, and we had folks who were doing it. We had figured out pilots for a handful of multifamily buildings where we worked with the property manager to create a central, drop-off location, and we worked with some businesses, so we've, like, been fairly in our 8 years, we've been testing stuff constantly about how do we appropriately serve more and more people because people have many different ways of living, and, um, I think landing on mail-in has been, exciting in a few ways for us because it solved a lot more it was a single solution to a lot more problems, in terms of like, "Hey, we can't bring our pickup service everywhere. Here's a good way that we can leverage an existing logistics network to get material back to us," or, "Not everywhere can have a bin," or even not everyone wants a subscription service, and so they want something that is more on demand for them, and maybe they don't have a need for all of the various household categories that we try and cover with our pickup service. Does that kinda answer your question? Cool.
Yeah,
To that,
exactly. Mhm.
yeah, to that end, I heard testing in that. That means you
Yeah,
probably got some
constantly.
stuff wrong. What'd you get wrong?
Yeah, what did we get wrong? Huh, um, I guess it kinda depends on what scale of wrong.
Oh,
I
that's
mean, we're
dealer's choice there.
constantly
Yeah,
yeah, right? We're constantly testing like, various things on the site, on like, kind of like your traditional
yeah,
digital or marketing testing where we're seeing what resonates with people, we're seeing what, helps them best use Ridwell.
yeah.
I think there's been I think we've expanded our pickup service a bit too far
Hmm,
away, as we and I think that's another reason why I'm excited about mail-in. As you get further and further away from our the warehouses, the areas those serve can be less and less dense, they
yeah,
can be more and more costly, and that impacts kind of the health of the business
yeah.
overall, and I think we expanded a little bit too far in certain areas, and so even if we had, you know, enough members to make up a route in a rural area, it can still be very rural and very costly for the business. So I think that has been a challenge that I'm excited for Mail-In to help us overcome and reach more of those people who are still interested in that. Um, what else? I mean, we have various. I think the one thing that we're actually pretty bad at is, not bad at, but an area of improvement is actually stopping our experiments.
Oh,
So, like, we'll start an experiment, we'll keep them running,
yeah,
and then we'll just keep them running. And I think that's been a challenge for us is because once something is rolling, it's like, well, these
Might as
people are
well.
getting value from this thing,
Right.
and, like, we don't wanna just stop. Like, they like this. I don't wanna just turn it off even if we're not planning on scaling it. And so
It
we
is
have a few unscalable things floating
yeah,
around there.
it is hard for some users and members who maybe aren't in the system and aren't logistically involved in the operations to understand sometimes how expensive strain can be on
Yeah,
logistics. And so
yeah,
it's hard to stop those because I think some people go like,
yeah,
but I've always been doing this. I choose
right,
to. It's like, well, it's hard
right,
though for us, and maybe we look forward to
right.
getting you back in some other capacity, but it's
Mhm,
just that is hard to do. It's really hard.
yeah,
Um, I think that where I want to go then on the part B of that question, which is, um, what are you testing in terms of? Is there any insight you're willing to share on what you've learned about how to educate or how to market these solutions so people go, "Oh, I need this. Oh, this makes sense.
mm,
Oh," and
mhm,
educating recycling is not easy. Educating recycling on a new type of business model maybe
yeah,
doubly as hard. Any insights
yeah.
there?
I think starting with the problem. So some people get the problem off the bat. They're like, "Oh yeah, I've been collecting these things and I need a place to take them." And they are generally our earliest adopters. They're the people who are like, "Oh, what Ridwell is doing is Ridwell is providing a convenient solution for something I already do." Then there's like the next hurdle of people who are either putting this stuff in the recycling bin or the trash can who are feeling guilty about it, but don't yet truly understand that like there's a solution out there that they can use. And then there's people who are not feeling guilty about those same behaviors. And those are kind of like the last people we tackle. Like the first step is getting them to understand the problem. Um, I mean, it starts a lot with the community activation, like you saw it in person when we're talking with the folks who are looking at Ridwell as a convenience orientation or a specific solution for a problem they feel very real, very intimately in their life. And so it starts with them. They are often the people who are helping spread the word, helping talk about Ridwell, and they're really key to that. I think the other side is then in a more um, one to many fashion helping educate around the problem, and that takes a few different pathways. So our first one is just general education, content, what we learned, highlighting our partners, and then I'm really excited. This is like I don't know if it's quite an exclusive. It's we're working on a sorting app to help people navigate waste and recycling. Today, it is an app that you can find, but it's primarily for our members to differentiate between multi-layer plastic and plastic film, which is our two most common plastic categories. But eventually, it will be something that is um, for any sort of material based on where you live. And I think that can be really exciting and an opportunity to really put forward um, awareness around just how difficult this can be. And so not only is it a where does it go, but it's a why does it have to go there tool. So I'm really excited about that. And then there's an advocacy level on helping navigate both from an individual level, a company level, and then a governmental level. Like, what should we be prioritizing when it comes to
Right.
like, rules and regulations and what's allowed and how do you bridge all those gaps? Because I'm um I think it all needs to be kind of a middle path. I'm not a big proponent for, like, strong government rules, without a lot of consumer buy-in,
Yeah.
because I think that creates a lot of tension, and uh as many people running toward it as there are running away from it, so
And on the other side of that, this has been almost a theme of a lot of conversations lately of having 50 different rules in
yeah,
50 different states and how complicating that can
exactly.
be for consumers and the
Yeah,
businesses trying to provide those solutions.
exactly. Yeah, very
Yeah, and
true.
I was gonna ask, like, both how regulation has hurt, or helped you,
Yeah,
and then that sounds like one lever, but then also another, like, talking about technology and the sorting app, I think that's really cool. That's, like, super upstream. I was also curious, like, how
yeah,
technology is a lever for your,
yeah.
growth. So any of those,
Yeah.
wherever you want to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. So I think technology has come a very, very long way, as we all know, in the last year and a half or
6
2 years. So
months.
things that are 6 months.
Things are
So things
moving
that were
fast. Yeah.
possible 2 years were not, they were not possible 2 years ago. Um, and so I just think it creates an opportunity for faster, more responsive feedback, in a space where people want feedback in the moment. They want to know, you have maybe a tenth of a second to
Right.
interrupt someone in their behavior moment of throwing something away, and you better get it in that tenth of a second. And the existing tools weren't able to do that through no fault of their own. And I think we're getting to a place where technology can enable that stuff, and there's some really cool tools out there. You see the, like, smart trash cans where you hold something
Mhm.
up and it tells you which thing to put it in. I just think there's a lot more there that's really exciting. Um, and to meet people where they are. It's really hard to have folks search a search tool and, like, get the words right. Like, not everyone knows what plastic film is. Like, no one knows to search for plastic film or anything like that, and so you're, like, having to guess what the database has tagged something as, and you're like, "Oh, hope it's under, clear plastic takeout containers," or something like that, and then you just lose people with fatigue. Um, so I'm excited about
Yeah.
those opportunities, and I think, the more we can do on education, to your point, at, like, how did you say it? Like, the wider education, the kind of better we'll be here. Um, and then to your second question, or I guess it was whatever, the regulatory side of things, it's been patchwork. Some municipalities are really receptive and excited about this. Some municipalities are a little bit more resistant. Um, I think where we've had the best, the best, I guess, outcome is where there's been strong consumer excitement for what we're doing in a way that then can show that it's not just you know, another company trying to come in and take a share of this pizza. It's like, no, there's there's your residents who deeply care about this and who want to see this in their area. And that's a much different, it's a much, better, easier conversation. And yeah,
I to that end, then I think to weave this, I'm curious how you'd maybe rank these factors then in terms of city selection. I'm going to
hmm
list off some factors here, and then I can repeat them
yeah,
because you're not going to be able to look at them. But I mean, when it terms, is this population density? Is this existing recycling infrastructure? Environmental consciousness that kind of got to that consumer end? Regulatory environment and competitive landscape.
yeah,
How do you what are the first
um,
three there? I mean, you mentioned consumers
yeah.
are top.
I think consumers are tough. Consumer demand is important. It's like how, but I wouldn't say that having a high or low recycling rate is necessarily indicative of an area that will do better or worse, since that has a lot of, like, mitigating factors. It's more measured by, like, just enthusiasm for Ridwell, which we will start measuring based on mail-in
Mm,
members. So how many serviceable mail-in members live within a 45-minute radius of this warehouse location that we're going to drop somewhere in the western suburbs of Chicago, for example. And that'll tell us a lot about the success at the early stages of a new market. There are definitely regulatory hurdles to get over, but that's often not a major driver of our, decisions. It's- Maybe if it's a toss up, like if it's a coin toss, regulatory, I guess, how friendly they are, how
right.
welcoming they are, could
Willing
be a
to
deal, like,
willing
exactly,
to
could be a
talk.
tiebreaker,
Yeah.
could definitely be a tiebreaker. Um, Density is huge. So, but I guess, like, when you talk about metro areas, all of those are dense enough.
Sure.
Like, in fact, like I was kind of mentioning, an area can be even too dense for our pickup service to work really well in, because we don't have great, so Manhattan, for example, like, I think those could be it could be a really exciting area for us to serve, but the door-to-door pickups could prove difficult.
Yeah, there's
So yeah,
that adage about New York, if you can make it there, you might be able to make it anywhere, actually kind of
that's
works for
probably true.
recycling, which is like it's so hard to do in the
Right.
dense urban areas that somehow,
Yeah.
yeah, if someone can crack that
They
nut
make it work.
efficiently. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Um, competitive landscape, we aren't super concerned.
Yeah.
Kind of like I mentioned, I believe this problem is big enough for there to be many solutions. We've been in different markets where there have been um, similar programs, and it's never been, we've kind of embraced that. So that hasn't been too much of a concern for us. And then, was there a fifth one?
No, you kind of rattled those off really well.
Okay.
There was density. We got, yeah, no, you nailed it. Yeah, you got all of
Okay.
them.
Cool. I
Yeah,
think we got him. Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Um, go for
I'm
it.
curious as like we talked about the company a lot, but you're a co-founder.
Yep.
You came from tech. You know, this
Yeah.
is
So yes.
much more physical than maybe what you've done before,
Yeah.
like physical in nature. And so, what
Yeah.
maybe talk about some of your own growth moments or learnings for yourself and how you've changed as a leader as you've gotten into this
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. Um, that's a very self-reflective question. I think one of the reasons that I'm still doing this is because every day has a different thing that I'm doing, which is new. I did start up I got started in the tech world, so I worked in startups in San Francisco. Then I moved to New York and worked in like tech consulting for a while, and then moving back to Seattle, which is where I'm from, I met Ryan, who's my co-founder, and he was doing this nights and weekends project with his son Owen, trying to do the crowdsourcing carpool of recyclables, which I thought was really, really cool. It was like the first sustainability climate idea that I felt was really solving a very real problem, like right there. So many other of the solutions were B2B or were kind of transient in a way. Like it's an
Yeah,
app where you close your computer, it's a carbon offset. I was actually drawn to how physical it was, to how real it was. And like I can go into my warehouse, which is like, 10 steps away and see the bales of plastic that aren't in the landfill now. And that's amazing. And I love that. I love closing my computer and realizing that like all of it still exists in the real world. There have definitely been their challenges. I think just the complexity, of trying to make operations simple is, like, really, really complicated. So in 2024, I took over and started overseeing all of our field operations after being more on the product and marketing and growth side of the house. I then inherited operations, and it's been fascinating. I work with many, many very strong leaders, down like our field operations team. And I think what I've probably learned most is, or what I've been reminded of, is that it's all about like people first. Yes, it's about like efficiency, and yes, it's about um, standard operating procedures and like smooth is slow, slow or slow is smooth, smooth is fast kind of processes. But it's really about people and getting them bought into what we're trying to do together, because if you get that buy-in, you get that enthusiasm, then you can do all these other things. And what we're constantly doing is iterating into how Ridwell works the best.
yep.
Because we're a weird company. We're a weird logistics company. We're reverse logistics. We're still small scale. And there isn't a clear comp. It's not like, oh, we're like Uber for this, or we're like
Right.
Instacart for X.
It,
Um, and
it
so the
is that.
best we can do is look at similars and learn from our betters in a sense, and bring what we can into our context.
Yeah, it's such a strange, I think, paradigm. Maybe sustainability companies sometimes
Hmm.
recycling, the ones that straddle both the digital and physical relationships of
Yeah.
consumers and users, that
Yeah.
it's just challenging. And I think, maybe for anybody that's listening, that's why it's so interesting, that's why it's so compelling
Yeah.
and so fun, is
And it's fun.
yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
is your learning.
And people pay for the service, right? It
Right.
is, in a sense, a membership supported business. And so we don't have the luxury of treating people um like a utility in a sense.
Right.
Like we we want to treat people like a member of this community, a person who supports what we're trying to do and what our mission and vision is as a shared community. And so we take a lot of pride in the experience we deliver, which then adds, operational complexity and cost, which it's this constant balance.
What would you say is your obsessive metrics, the things that you really look at and go, okay, these are the things that can drive us forward, that you
Yeah.
sort of are looking at on a day-to-day basis?
NPS. I'm looking at lots of people will have lots of problems with
Yeah.
NPS, which is Net Promoter Score, which, um, for anyone who's a UX person out there will probably be like, what are you doing using NPS? But like, I watch that one all the time and I read our comments every day from everyone who comes through. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying, and I'm tagging people and saying, like, hey, can we reach out to this person about this? Can we, um, I think our customer service CSAT is critical to me, so I'm
Yeah.
watching that
Can
constantly,
you
like, how
explain
are
that
we
to the
doing
audience?
responding to
Is
sorry, yeah, CSAT is, customer satisfaction score, and so that's, when we are asking people after they've reached out to us for help, we then ask them, "How did we do solving your problem?" and get that response. It's that I guess it's a more concierge mentality of, like,
yeah.
how sticky is our service, and are people loving using Ridwell? And that's really important to me.
Well, then what I would say to that, and to compliment you all again, but it's what is interesting about what you all do is it is polarizing in a lot of ways. Many people can have very strong opinions about certain companies that are entering the recycling space. And
Uh-huh.
when doing the research, it was very interesting to find that there were strong opinions about Ridwell. And then you would go into
Okay.
those comments, and there were also strong supporters of Ridwell. And they would be the
Yeah.
ones that would be like, I've used this. I like this. This is how it affects my community. And so it was a
Uh-huh.
good sort of defense against, you don't know these days what's a bot or what's not.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
generally, I could say that if someone's standing up for something and saying, I use this, this is me, I'm here to advocate, more than likely
Uh-huh.
that's an actual human that is actually saying, no,
Right.
no, no. I'm defending this in this comment thread. And I thought it was
Yeah.
really interesting, those
Yeah.
relationships in those comment threads.
And I really try not to read our Reddit threads.
Good.
Yeah. When
Good.
I'm up late at night, I can sometimes do that.
But it was, I would say there's a lot of great people that are
Exactly.
posing a lot of really hard problems, and a lot of very passionate users that are saying, hey, this is really complex. It's not that easy. I really like the way they're communicating to us. And so I think that communication
Yeah.
is so key. And I really respected
Yeah.
the way that your members were able to sort of advocate for what they believe in those threads.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
I'm curious as we wrap our time together,
Yeah, sure.
what do you want to leave the audience with? Sometimes we ask for like what you're hopeful for. It
Mhm.
sounds like I'm hopeful for the mail-in program, but if there's
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like you want the audience to leave this conversation with.
It's a great question. I am also hopeful for the mail-in program. Check it out. I think the big thing that I want folks to feel is a sense of, like, hope and optimism that there are people working hard to find solutions to solve these problems that face us that feel really, really insurmountable.
Hmm.
Like, you can read all the time about microplastics, plastics in the ocean, landfills filling up, global warming. Like, it's really easy to get disheartened. And I hope that, yes, of course, that people join mail in and that people feel a sense of like renewed hope that there are lots of smart people who care about this and that are working hard to find ways to solve it. And that it's also going to take all of us doing little things. I'm a big believer in I always get this quote wrong, but it's something like we need millions of people doing things imperfectly, not thousands doing things perfectly. That like perfect is the enemy of good, and we need to be focusing on small changes that we can all do together as opposed to like huge behavior changes that only a handful of us are gonna attain.
I love that. Where should people find you all? What should be their next call to action for Ridwell?
Ridwell.com.
Excellent.
So
With that,
it's like,
yeah, I'm excited to see where the expansion goes. And
thank you.
you
Yeah.
should check them out. Thank you, Alia, for the time today.
No, yeah, thank you both. It's really fun. And um yeah, I'm looking forward to having more conversations. I think what you all are doing is really, really cool. Getting the word out there about lots of people trying new things. And so thank you. Thank you for what you do too.